C-60 tips and tricks. This is out of a Toyota, or I think there's other cars that use it, maybe the Lotus and the MR2, but this is 6-speed C-60 Toyota Trans. This is not how to take it apart, because someone else did that on the internet, did a really good job. We watched it, and we just have a little bit to add because we ran into some troubles. Mainly the puller that he appeared to be using got under this, what they call the fifth driven gear. There's two gears on this shaft that they're pressed on. This is the sixth driven, and this is fifth driven, I believe. First thing you gotta do is you take these clips off, and in the video that we saw it said they're different, and they are different, but they look really close. But by the naked eye you can figure out which one they are, but I recommend you mark them, because under this there is a third split ring lock that looks just like these two, and we got them confused and we ruined one of them in the process. So mark all three of those to know which ones they are. The other problem we had was you got to pull these two bearings off after you remove the split rings. You have to pull these this slides off, I believe, and this one is pressed on. This is the sixth driven and the fifth driven. This we had trouble with. This is what we broke a gear. Actually, I think we broke this one. You can see the chips we put in it. You can buy replacements, but they're like 50 bucks. And we screwed it up on our first try. The first thing we did was use this. This is a bearing puller you can buy from Harbor Freight. And there's two of them in the kit, and this is the smaller one. As you can see, this doesn't fit between there. So what we did was went to the hardware store, got a short piece of all thread. I think this is a 5/16. It's the biggest one we could get, and it still didn't fit, so we had to grind it a little bit. But it worked, because it doesn't really do the pulling. What does the pulling, you just have to get the gear, the puller under the gear somewhat, and snug it up a little bit. Don't force it, and then pull it up, and they'll come off. These two come off with this puller, and then you come to let's see. Then this thing comes off, and that has three threaded holes at 120 degrees, and you simply use this harmonic puller. I don't think this is the one we use, but just like this. And I think it's threaded at like a 6mm bolt, and we had a Harbor Freight kit, and they had long enough bolts in it, but they were SAE size, but they still threaded in enough where I could pull it out. But if you want to get the right bolts, I recommend that. So that came off with this. And the biggest problem we had was this fifth driven, I believe they call it. And in the video we saw, this is the whole reason we're making this video, is the guy seemed to pull it from underneath here. He had a puller that went underneath.
Armstrong Racing.
Yeah, and he pulled it up. And I don't know, we could not find that puller, I mean, on the internet or at the store. And we tried, you got to get a good puller because it's on there. And we couldn't get it, and of course, these gears, they're so hardened, they're like glass, they'll bust on you, just like I broke this sixth driven. So we were careful of that, and we tried it. We couldn't find. I even tried to make a puller that's, because there's a piece of sheet metal. Well, it's not sheet, but it's a piece of plate, and there's a rise under that plate that you can't see, and it makes this super thin, so it's hard to find a tool that will slide under there, and it's impossible. I don't know how that guy did it, where he got that puller from, and it's probably a Toyota piece. It's probably very expensive. But I noticed this groove right here. It looks like a shifting fork would go in there, but nothing goes in there. You can see nothing's missing from this trans, so that is there to pull it off. So this came to the rescue here, and this pulled it off. We got it locked on there and popped it right off. Just lock around this top collar here, that's what it's for, I believe, and it'll come off. Now, we tried to use this on this sixth driven, and just notice that gear's in the way. I think we removed that gear, I can't remember, but it's really awkward to use this tool, and in the process we chipped the gear with this metal here, chipped that gear. So what we did was use this, our third puller, and we this 3-jaw puller. I don't think this is the one we were using, but it was just like this. Got under the gear with all 3 of these jaws. That's how. And pushed up on this, and we were able to pull this 6 out without chipping it.
We put a little bolt on top.
Just because there's threads there. I don't know what they're for. They don't go to anything. They probably go to some Toyota tool that we didn't have. But once you get these 2 bearings, this 6th driven, this 5th driven, and this is like I don't know what they call it, but it's the gear. This is the device that engages 5th and 6th. Right now it's in neutral. All your other gears, the 4 speeds are inside there, but that's all I gotta add. I hope that's helpful enough.
Okay, so first I would like to show you why you don't or you may not need the LSD install kit. Every website I saw that was selling, this is an open differential, but all the websites I saw that were selling the TRD Helical LSD, they said you need to have the LSD install kit, and the only place that sells it is Monkey Wrench Racing, and it's $110 about. And it's really not so much a kit as it's just a collection of parts that you can just buy, elsewhere or from the dealership or whatever. But all it is these bearings right here, and the race that goes around them. So the race that sits in the transmission, you probably already have the race, and 2 axle seals. So the seal that goes on the input and the output shaft of your transmission. And you can get those anywhere. You can get them on Rock Auto. Napa actually has them too. But I actually returned it because the LSD I pulled out of this broken transmission. It already had the bearings on it, and the bearings were fine. I saw no point in replacing them. But I will put the part numbers and stuff for you in the description if you want. But I just wanted to say that you really do not need that LSD install kit unless the LSD you buy doesn't have these bearings on it. And then the method we used, there's a shortcut method, and then the method you've probably seen in the Armstrong Racing video where he takes everything off, puts everything in, measures all the preloaded stuff. I tried to do it with the shortcut method. It didn't work for me. I would put it all back together and the gears wouldn't move anywhere. And so I said, well, I'm just going to have to do it the long way. So I left the LSD in, but the gears weren't moving. And then I started taking it apart from the top, like the Armstrong Racing guy does. You take this off, you pull the bearings and stuff. So basically the method I used was kind of somewhere in between the shortcut method and the long method, because I didn't take all the gears off. I just took off enough to take this part off. And so what I had basically was this part of the transmission with all the gears except these top ones here. So basically what I would recommend doing, if you want to install it the easiest way, is do the shortcut method, take this part of your transmission off, put your new LSD in, take this off, take this is the reverse fork, take the reverse fork off, then put this part back on, put a few of the bolts in just to hold it, no need to put sealant, and then you'll start taking it apart the Armstrong Racing way, the long way, You take this off, take all these gears off, take this piece off, take all the gears in it, wait, sorry, no, you wouldn't.
The plate comes off.
Yeah, you would just take this chunk off, you would leave the gears in, unless you're going to measure the bearing preload like the Armstrong Racing guy does it. I didn't do that because my transmission appeared to be in decent shape.
There's nothing wrong with checking the preload. It's just we forgot to do it. You can't have the gear set in there. You basically put it back together without the gears in it. Check your preload, then take it back apart. So,
yeah. And
then adjust it with shims that we didn't have anyway. So we kind of skipped it. But if you're doing it the shortcut method, you're skipping it anyway.
Yeah. And you're going to run into way more headaches. So after you take this piece off, you'll have this piece with all the gears in it, and you'll have your differential there at the bottom. At that point, you want to put this back on, and you'll see you can set it all up nicely. With the normal shortcut method, you kind of have to like have it on just a little bit.
Done like a 3/4 of an inch slot.
Yeah, and your sealant's going to be there, and you're going to make a huge mess with sealant. It's just not worth it. So put this back on. Put sealant now. The sealant you want to use, I looked it up in the factory service manual. Here's a tube of it, but it's all squished. It's just Permatex. The special Permatex they make for gear oil. It's in the green tube. They have it everywhere. It's only like $11, I think. Put that down. Then put this back on. Put the case back on. And then you'll need to put all these gears and bearings back on. And then, of course, sealant here. And then you're done.